Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast helping your family cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show our co-host all the way down in Florida. How are you doing today, Christy?
I am well, Steve. How are you?
Not too bad. This is a special West Coast edition of the DCL podcast because we are finally talking about the West Coast, which is the best coast.
I mean, I want to say yay because I'm very excited about the topic and the guest we have on, but it is not the best coast. Clearly, it was the last coast to even get a ship cruising out of it. If you just look at that reason alone, not the best coast. Oh, Disneyland opened up after Disney World. What? If it was the best, well, after from the post-restart standpoint, not the original. I
was going to say, I think the 50s were before the 70s, but who am I? I don't know.
Mean,
I just do general public math.
But I'm just saying that if it was the best, it would have restarted sooner. So therefore, East Coast is the best coast. And if you ever notice when they talk about what time something starts on TV, they talk about it in the Eastern time zone. And when there's some big event, it's on during our prime time in the Eastern time zone.
That's just because there's more of you over there east of the Mississippi. But let's jump into today's topic. I'd like to welcome back to the show, good friend of the show, all the way out in Utah. How you doing today, Brian?
I am doing well. And I will just add that the last's the best of all the game. So, those who start last are best.
We'll leave it right there. I had to represent for Chris a little bit. He's busy working today. All right, let's jump into it. Brian, you and your family literally yesterday just got off the Disney Wonder after first sailing back out of San Diego. I guess before we just jump into it, how was it like getting back on a Disney ship? Because I know that this is something that we've tweeted back and forth and texted back and forth. And I know your family's been excited about it. We did a podcast on camping, and now you guys finally get back on the ship.
It was incredible. It was incredible. It was magical. It was wonderful. It was exciting. It was all the things that we love about Disney Cruise Line. And it was really special to be on the first sailing of the Wonder. First sailing out of San Diego of any cruise ship, actually.
Well, why don't you remind everybody, Brian, who went on this cruise and when did you guys book it? Was this one? I cannot remember. Did you guys already have this on the books, or was this something that you booked once you saw the Wonder was going to begin sailing again?
So this was cruising me, my wife, and my 4 kids. We have a 13, 11, 9, and 6-year-old. And this cruise, we actually booked it on opening day for Silver Castaway Club members. This was like over a year ago. And we had a December 2020 cruise, and we were starting to worry that wasn't going to happen. And we wanted to do a backup. So we called up Christy, and she helped us book this on opening day. And then, the last year plus have been just waiting to see, is it going to sail or not? We thought back then for sure. And of course, a lot of our predictions ended up not being true. And we ended up being the very first ship sailing back of the Wonder, which was just really exciting and fun. So a lot of anticipation, a lot of stress. Will this happen? Will this not happen? But in the end, it happened, and it was phenomenal.
I am so excited that your family got to take this cruise, Brian. It was such a long time coming, and it really was. Even I felt that sense of relief. Like once you sent the pictures that you were on board, I was like, okay, we made it, because this one, it just felt like a lot because we weren't sure. And it really was to the very end that we weren't sure what was going to happen.
Yeah, we can get into it now. But the fact that you have to go through the whole COVID testing means up until the last minute, you never know what's going to happen.
I wasn't sure the Wonder was really going to go back to the West Coast, to be completely honest. It's kind of surprised me that she did for these the short amount of times that she's going to be sailing out of there. But I'm happy that she did. Well, let's jump into the COVID part of it. You guys travel from Utah down to LA, I believe, and then down to San Diego. Kind of talk about that a little bit. And then what did you guys have to do ahead of time testing wise?
We wanted to be really careful and make sure that we were doing everything we could to keep our kids safe and healthy so that we would all test negative. So we pulled them out of school a little bit early and decided to head down in a little bit more controlled environment. We knew just isolating with all the anticipation in our house for days on end wasn't going to work. So we'd drive each other crazy. So we headed down to Anaheim actually and stayed at one of our favorite hotels down there that's kind of by Disneyland that has a water park, and hung out there for 2 days, and then went and spent some time in San Diego before the cruise, did Old Town San Diego, and then just stayed a night across the street from where the Wonder was docked. In terms of COVID testing, we have 3 kids who are too young to be vaccinated, so they had to be tested that 3 days to 24 hours in advance. And we had researched and went, there's a place called the COVID Clinic that has locations across the country, but they have one at Anaheim City Hall, and they specialize in doing kind of like travel-related COVID testing. They'll do the bill your insurance for medical reasons stuff, but they also do if you pay them, they will give you quick test results for travel. And we took advantage of the fact that Disney, just before our trip, announced that you could do the NAAT tests instead of a PCR tests, which those are more accurate than the antigen, but as I understand it, not a medical expert, but they're a lot quicker results. And so that's what we ended up doing, is we went to that place at Anaheim City Hall. It was super slick. You have to register online, but they don't seem to cap appointment times. I never saw any of the times like sold out. We just went first thing in the morning, and we're in and out in 15 minutes and had results for the first kid by the time we were back at the hotel. So they told us it takes about 15 minutes for those NAAT tests to go, and that we get a result every 15 minutes. They just had to run each of my kids through the machine. So super slick. Everybody tested negative. We're happy for that. And then, of course, when we got to the port, the way the Port of San Diego is set up right now, you get there. We had an 11 a.m. port arrival time. I think that was one of the first port arrival times. We saw people kind of lining up a little early. So we went over about 15 minutes early, and they said, oh, no, you're going to have to wait until 11. They're saying they're being really strict about that. But after about 5 minutes, they took us back anyways and let us go. As you walk in there, they give you your test kit. And then they take you as you walk in, they have you drop your luggage off. And then you go in, you get your test kit, and then they have little booths. And we have travel with 2 staterooms because of the number of kids. And each of us got separated, one adult, the way we were booked in our staterooms, 1 adult and 2 kids got taken to each booth to do the test and did the nose swab. And then they took us to a waiting area with a screen, and you could also watch in the app for your thing to come up. A couple of things we found out. I don't know if this is the same everywhere, but at least there, they were coming and picking up the results from the booths as people were getting them done. We had some friends we had met while we were out taking pictures of the Wonder, and they had an interesting scenario where they saw in the app that everyone in their family but one person was cleared. They had to wait for another 15 minutes for that last person to clear. So it was like they were doing them in batches, and they weren't necessarily making sure they got everybody in a party together. So they were like, everybody's cleared but me. What does that mean? Everybody had trouble. And it was just they had to wait another 15 minutes, and then their number popped up and they were all cleared. In our case, my cabin got done first, and we had to wait another 15 minutes for my wife's cabin. But we were really only waiting for 45 minutes. And they told us that we should only plan to wait for 20 to 30 minutes, and it was maybe 45 for us. So we got there at about 11, and we were ready to board at noon. Super slick that way.
So the Port of San Diego is kind of small. Is the boarding area still in that old warehouse building?
Yeah, it's like a big warehouse. Yeah. And they had it divided into the testing area, the waiting for your results. And then they had another separate area you had to walk through. By the time we went through, we were boarding group 2. They were already starting to board, but they had a little waiting area there if they weren't boarding yet. You did your check-in, and then they walked you on. Somebody in our cruise Facebook group who works for the port told us that if there were 2 ships in port at the same time, then somebody might have to be shipped to an offsite area for testing. But there was only 1 ship boarding that day, so we didn't experience that.
So playing on the app real quick, the COVID Clinic, you go to covidclinic.org, and it looks like they have 2 sites in the Orlando area if anybody wants to use that for sailing out of Port Canaveral if you're down there ahead of time with kids. One quick question before you talk about your cruise, Brian. The thing that I love about the Port of San Diego is, you don't have the Disney touch that Port Canaveral has, but the port is right downtown. You can stay right there and watch the ship come in the morning and see it out your window, depending upon what hotel you're in. Plus, San Diego is just an amazing city with the views of the bay, restaurants. It's easy to get to from the airport. I think Anawake and I are actually going to walk from the airport over to the port when we get there next Friday, which I know is a little wonky for a lot of people. But one question we had was, did you guys go out to eat the night before? And did you find a family-friendly place to go and eat?
We did. So like I said, we were down there. We spent a night in Old Town, San Diego, which is really cool. And then the next night we stayed at the Marriott Spring Hill Suites right across from the port. Like literally as I pulled up, I sent you guys pictures. The Wonder was parked the bow right there. You could see it, and we could see it right out of our window. That night we had lunch. We got there kind of early and checked into the hotel. We went and had lunch at a Mexican place, right? Just a walk down, and it was really good food right there on the pier. I can't remember the name of it, but it's right there. There were several restaurants in that little complex. And then we did go down and tour one of my kids was interested, and we toured the USS Midway is right there. And that's a really cool old aircraft carrier you can tour. There's a lot to do right along there. For dinner that night, I may not get Parent of the Year award for this, but one of our favorite ice cream places is Salt and Straw, and they're walking distance from the port. So we went about 5:00 and walked down and got everybody ice cream for dinner. And then we came back. My kids wanted some real food. So there was like a little deli down underneath the hotel. And we went down there and got real food after we had our ice cream. So you can tell what we were prioritizing. But yeah, definitely good food around there and family options. And the ice cream, Salt and Straw is really good. It was like a 10-minute walk from the hotel.
It's up on India Street, Little Italy, and that is a great place with a lot of different restaurants, a lot of family-friendly places up there. Well, as for people that are going to be sailing out of San Diego.
The Salt and Straw actually has a location, I believe, at Disneyland, downtown Disney, and they're getting one now in Disney Springs at Walt Disney World. So that's exciting. That's exciting. You can get one before your cruise. So let's talk about getting on board. You've listened to podcasts leading up to this. Was the boarding process the same where they get you sort of in a group and then get you onto the ship in kind of sections of 10 or, parties of 10, something like that?
Yeah. So we checked in. We walked up, we did the photo in front of the background and then walked on the gangway, and they had us pause for just a minute at the end of the gangway while they did the little mini show for the group ahead of us. And then they brought us in. We were the first family in that group, announced our name, put us on a dot. We got just a little Mickey show like you've heard. And then the nice cast member came over and directed us on how to find our muster station, so we could go take a picture of that. And then we were free to explore the ship.
Let's take a second. What were your first impressions? I mean, it had been a while since you'd been on board. You had to take other trips, camping in Costa Rica. So you took these other trips before you got to go on this cruise. Just what was your thoughts about being back on board Disney cruise ship again?
To be honest, it was a little bit surreal. I think we were just kind of waiting for our number to pop up so we could get on, and then kind of a little bit in shock walking on there and looking at this beautiful atrium, and all the cast members were clapping and friendly and exciting. And it was really cool. It's really cool. A little bit, I think I was a little bit in shock for a few minutes. It took a little bit to sink in that we were back on a Disney cruise. And once we did, it was awesome. They had the pumpkin tree there in the lobby. They were all decorated for Halloween. It was incredible to be back on board after so many months of just wanting to get back out on a ship on the ocean and to experience that Disney service. And it felt, we've sailed on the Magic before. It was our first time on the Wonder, but it definitely felt homey because the ships are very, very similar, and felt like, yeah, we're back. We're back.
What were your thoughts of the Welcome Aboard show, Brian, and your families? Because normally, you get on board and everybody goes and does their muster drill, and you go upstairs and you do the sail away party and everything. So a little bit different this time. What were you guys' thoughts of that?
I really liked it. I thought it was really fun to get that little touch of magic as you came on, and Mickey and Minnie cheering and everybody cheering for you to be on board, and then to have the freedom to go about and do what you wanted to do. I really liked it. I hope they keep that little show for boarding.
I agree. I need that show to stay. I love it. I love it so much. Okay, let's talk about what kind of cabin you booked, Brian. And in your case, I kind of already obviously know some of this information. So what did you book in terms of your cabin, but what type of cabin did you end up with?
Yeah, so we booked adjoining Ocean View staterooms on deck 2, which would have been fine. But a couple weeks beforehand, we noticed that our cabin numbers had changed. And we actually ended up getting put, I think it was almost 4 category bump up. We got put on veranda, ocean view with veranda cabins on deck 7 towards the aft end of the ship, just by the aft elevators. And it was an awesome, magical bit of pixie dust to get those rooms. I don't think we would normally pay for that category of cabins. It was an awesome location, adjoining veranda rooms. It was nice because they had 4 beds in each room instead of 3, so my girls didn't have to share a bed. We loved having that veranda, and it was just a bit of pixie dust. I don't think they want anybody on deck 2 for the sailing for whatever reason, and so we lucked out. And a lot of people in our Facebook group, I think, got moved around, but I think we got the better upgrade than a lot of people, so we were really, really happy.
That was so cool. And what's even crazier is Disney didn't even tell us until like days later. So you noticed it in the app, and then I swear it was at least a week later that we even got the email from them that said, "Oh, here's some information about your sailing." So anyway, it was very exciting. I was very happy for you guys.
Awesome location on the ship. That aft area right by that stairwell, really easy to get up to Cabanas, get up to the drink station, not bad down to the kids club. It's a great location. There was a little bit of vibration. The Wonder, I think when it goes down to Cabo, has to go pretty fast to make it. And we did feel that, but it wasn't annoying for us, even when it was fairly noticeable.
So you did the muster station. Then what was the next stop for you guys?
We went up to Cabanas to get some lunch. We were hungry. We had prepared and had some snacks in case we didn't get to eat for a little while, but the COVID testing, like I said, was fast for us. I went up to Cabanas, got lunch. Cabanas, I think people have talked about it. Is you go up, of course, they have you wash your hands, and then they take you to an area and they say, okay, this is your area. And they're basically repeating the same stations throughout. So the variety is a little bit less, but there were still good options for food. We enjoyed it, got a table and got to eat. I will say, I think while the variety is less, the food quality may have gone up just a little bit in Cabanas. So after Cabanas, our rooms were available. So we went down to our stateroom. Our luggage was already outside. And so we pulled, this is like 1:00. So I think this is a little bit abnormal. Pulled our luggage in. Our stateroom attendant asked, do you have everything? And we pulled everything in the room and did and unpacked a little bit. We had an awesome stateroom host, I will say. I think all the cast members were awesome, but talked to him a little bit. And, a lot of them, some of them may have found other things to do, but a lot of them have been really waiting for 18 months to get back on the ship. A lot of them are longtime DCL cast members, and they just couldn't wait to get back. And they showed he was awesome. After that, we went to the kids club. They were doing a kids club open house. We got to go walk around. I will say it's a little different because everything's kind of put away. There's not like in the past, you get into the kids club and an open house and there were iPads and different activities and things going on. This was kind of, you can come in and look around. And my main reason for going to the open house is I wanted to use the hand washing machine. So they had me I got to use the hand washing machine and go in and look around the kids club a little bit. We also wanted to make sure our kids were properly registered. They always, the first time you go to check them in, they ask you some questions, even if you've pre-registered, to make sure they have the information correct. And then you can get a little lock because your kids in the Oceaneers Club and Lab, they have a magic band they put on so that they can track them in and out of the club. And those can fall off. You're responsible for paying for them if they do, but they have a little plastic clip they can put on so that it's less likely to fall off. And we went and got those on our kids at that same time. And then after that, we went off and did different activities. They had activities going on, trivia and different things like that boarding day. So there's plenty to do on the ship. And then like 4:00, they just pause everything to make everybody watch the safety video for a few minutes, and then you just get back into it. So boarding day, you can just jump in and get right to having fun.
Let's just kind of stick with the kids clubs before we get into food and talking about that. Were you guys able, well, before we even say that, so this was a 4-day sailing. You guys got on board, you had a day at sea, then a day in Cabo, day at sea back, and then you're back into San Diego. Am I right?
Yeah, originally it was booked as a 7-night Mexican Riviera, but with the restart, they changed it to a 4-night, gave us some money back, gave us some onboard credit and other perks. So Disney took really good care of us. In addition to the ship's upgrade, well, it was sad not to have a 7-night cruise. Like all the benefits made it like we didn't complain.
So talking about the kids clubs, we've talked to, several people with the Oceaneers Lab and Club. We'll talk about that. But what about the tween clubs and the teen club? Did you guys have to make reservations ahead of time for them, or was that kind of more come as you go?
No, so for the Edge, so I've got 2 kids that could go into Edge, and they did. They were able to go up. Edge's hours were a little bit more limited than they have been in the past. There were periods they didn't open until like 10 in the morning, and then there was a break during the middle of the afternoon when they were closed. I don't think that's normal. And then they told us that they had a capacity restriction, I think, of 17 kids, that if there were more than 17 kids, they wouldn't let any more come in. My kids never experienced a meeting capacity, but they were able to come and go as they wanted. My daughter had an incredible time on Edge on our first cruise, and she was a little disappointed on this one. I think part of it was some of the changes, and part of it was just there seemed to be more boys hanging out in the club than girls. And so some of that's just a mix. My 11-year-old, on the other hand, it was his first time in Edge and was messaging us on the app how much fun he was having at several points. And we're actually pleased that both my daughter and son, this is one of the things I love about, Disney Cruise Line. You have those fun, magical memories. Those 2 fight a lot. And they had fun together in Edge, which was like, Aww. When I got the message that they were doing that, it was like one of those parenting moments. You're like, perfect. This is why I go on the cruise, is hoping you guys can have some bonding time and get past your sibling rivalry. And they had a lot of fun that first day on Edge. They told me that they did They had a video game tournament. I think that's a pretty common thing. And they were sanitizing the controllers and stuff between players, and making them sit 6 feet apart or something like that. But they were able to go up and have a video game tournament, and they had fun with that. And they had other different activities going on. So it's definitely open, no reservations required. A little bit different, but still, my kids still have fun.
Well, then let's roll with the Oceaneers Lab and Club. Did you have any problems getting reservations ahead of time and then utilizing the club while you're on board? As far as, did you use them during dinner? Did you have your kids go down there during dinner? Did you guys go to Palo, anything like that?
So originally, before they had announced the restart, we couldn't book our kids club times, which really confused me. But then once our cruise was a little weird with the pre-booking because they changed and modified the cruise on us, but we were able to get times in advance. We had a Palo reservation, so we got a kids club reservation time for that, which was our second sea day. I also got a time the first sea day. A couple of my kids the first time didn't really like the kids club. And so they were kind of like, we don't know if we want to go. We don't want to go, that sort of thing. But we got on board. We actually, the first day, got a slot for my youngest. He was interested in going. And he went. We got an ad hoc spot, just talked to the people at the kids club. I never was able to book. I will add this caveat. You were supposed to be able to book, like it worked ahead of time to book in the app. It shows up under the onboard activities section, onboard fun, not in some other place. So that confused me at first. But you go to onboard fun like you would for a tasting or something like that. And there was a kids activities section. You could go in and book. You're supposed to be able to do that once you were on board the ship as well, if there were still availability, because they'd only let you book one per day ahead of time. But once you're on the ship, you were supposed to. I could never get it to work in the app. We always had to go talk to somebody in the kids club. But we were able to get one the day of, and my 6-year-old went and had a blast, came back with his backpack with different supplies. I think they were giving them their own crayons and stuff that they could bring back with them. All the other kids who were eligible for the kids club were like jealous and wanted to go then after they saw how much fun he had that first night. And so we had booked one for them the next day, but we did try and get a couple ad hoc. A couple times we were able to get ad hoc, a couple times we were not. I think our cruise, there were a lot of kids using the kids club. And so definitely book it in advance because there's no guarantee, but we were able to get some last minute times on board as well.
A couple of things. That backpack, I don't think I've remembered to talk about that yet on any of my cruises. It's the cutest little backpack, and they put a set of crayons so that they always have their own crayons, so they're not sharing it. But that also, so the kids club isn't having to throw away crayons after every 4 times, after every use is what I meant to say. So that every day they're getting new crayons, or they go for a second session and they get another set. That is awesome. And there's no charge for that. And you just take it home with your kid at the end. And then they put all their little crafts and stuff that they've done in the backpack, which is so cute. As for booking additional times, obviously it depends on if the system is going to work, but you almost go, at least when I've done it, you go into the app and you find your whatever reservation you've already made. And then you click on it. You click on that reservation. And then from in there, you can select another time. And again, it might just, Brian was saying, it wasn't working for the Wonder, but that's how I always found for it to work for me. You have to get into your own reservation. It doesn't even it sort of looks like you're canceling your first reservation, but somehow it lets you make a second one or a third one. And that's been the process. It's really tough to explain. I'll try to remember to take screenshots of it when, fingers crossed, I get on this weekend. Then I'll be able to show it to our listeners. But it's like you re-click in the same spot, and then you can, if there's availability, make that additional time.
We could go in and do that. I found it, and they'd show a time, and we'd click on it, and then it would be like something went wrong. And a couple of times they told me that it was showing us times that were already full. And then that may have been the problem, but cast members were super helpful. We had one time, the other problem we had is we had times we were trying to get more than one kid in. And I think when you're just doing one, it's easier. It was also weird. I could book, because we're in 2 cabins, normally I can book activities for all the kids in both cabins, but for the youth clubs, I couldn't. My wife had to book the kids assigned to her room, and I had to book the ones assigned to mine. And that caused problems a couple of times. One time we went to them though and said, hey, we have 2 of them for this time. We want to put all 3. Can we? And at first they said no, but then they messaged us an hour later, hey, we've accommodated you. So they were really trying to be really helpful and made everything work. So I would say, though, it's worth pre-booking, even if you're not sure you're going to use it. When you have your online check-in window, book a time for each day. If your kids aren't sure that they like the kids club based on prior experience, push them to try, because it is different now. And my kids liked it a lot more. It's more structured. They go in with a counselor and move between stations. My oldest did say there were some stations he didn't really like. that were more geared towards younger kids. And there were others that he's texting me like, don't pick me up early. I'm having so much fun. I don't want to go to Edge right now. I'm enjoying the kids club. I'm like, great. It's your last year, last chance to, I guess he has one more year he can do that, but it's definitely fun. I walked by a couple times. I saw they had Pluto's pajama party going on one of the times that I dropped the kids off. I saw them doing Super Sophie Science with Stitch one time. I heard them marching, and I think the Green Army men were in there doing a military marching activity when we picked them up one time. So they're definitely getting characters in there. They're definitely having fun, unique things that you don't get anywhere else. They seem to be really trying to get the characters in the kids club and involved, even if they had to, maybe you can't give Mickey a hug right now. He was there and around for you to see and interact with in a socially distanced way.
Well, I'm glad your kids enjoy the kids club, Brian. And I know, like with the teens and tweens, sometimes it really depends upon the crowd and the sailing. We've kind of had the same luck with that with our kids as well up there. But overall, they've really enjoyed it. Let's move on to food. So this is your first time on the Wonder. You get to go to Tiana's Place, Animator's Palette, and Royal Court. Am I right? Royal Court. No. Triton's.
So we had Animator's Palette 2 nights in Tiana's, and then Triton's was our dining rotation.
Okay.
And again, we were, I think, one of the first sailings. It wasn't on our card. You had to look it up in the app. It wasn't a big deal. It was easy to see in the app. And then you click right there. You could see the menu for what that night's menu was. It was their regular menu, or we had a pirate night menu one night.
So we're talking before the show that they actually have some special shows that go on during dinner beyond the original show at Tiana's Place. Could you talk first, what were your thoughts of the different restaurants? What did you think of Tiana's, since that's a different restaurant that most people don't get to experience unless you're on the Wonder, obviously? And then can you talk a little bit about those additional shows that they've started? And Christy, I know that you've experienced them too, so if you'd add as well.
I will say food was, I think several people have commented, with less capacity on the ships. I think we heard there were around 1,000 people on our sailing, which is half or less than half of the Wonder's normal capacity. I felt the food was maybe up a bit. Serving team was awesome. Both of our servers had been with DCL for a while, and just incredible, the service that we all love. In terms of Tiana's Place, I will be honest, the show in Tiana's Place was awesome. They had the singing, they had Tiana come out on stage and talk. She wasn't going around and visiting the tables, but they did have the parade. So all our servers grabbed paper instruments and horns, and they did the jazz parade with what's his name, Louis Alligator. Louis came out and led a little parade with just the servers. So I think normally maybe in the past the guests were invited to participate, but it was just the servers and him came out and did a whole parade through and had the music, and so the show in Tiana's was still really, really fun. We enjoyed that a lot. I was not super impressed with the food in Tiana's, to be totally honest. We love, part of it maybe my wife's from Houston, Texas. We love kind of New Orleans Cajun kind of style food. And I felt like they kind of toned it down. It wasn't as spicy. It wasn't as, like, they're trying to make it work with a larger audience, which I understand. And so the food was not the best Cajun food I've had.
They Disneyfied the Cajun food for sure.
Yeah, but we still enjoyed the meal. They do have beignets. I don't know that you can ruin beignets. We enjoyed the meal. We loved the show. It was fun, and definitely fun to experience Tiana's Place. And I really liked that we were there for the Pirate Night as well. And I know the Pirate Night menu gets kind of a bad rap. I've heard a lot of people don't like it. We quite liked the Pirate Night menu. I thought there was I enjoyed the food on Pirate Night, maybe even more than Tiana's menu, if I can say that. It was good. We had fun there. And Pirate Night, they did a little pirate show. So they had pirates come in, and they kind of offer the opportunity for you to join the crew, and they have you stand up and wave your pirate bandanas if you have them, or whatever, or napkin or whatever around. And they led you in this kind of like pirate show to join their crew, which was really, really cool. They're in costumes. It's just like part of the entertainment staff. That was really fun on Pirate Night. Enjoyed that. When we were in Triton's our last night, they have a celebration at sea, they call it. And all the classic Disney characters, Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, Pluto, Donald, all come in and do a whole song and dance thing, walking through all the tables. You can snap pictures of them as they walk by your table. They're just kind of doing a parade, song and dance thing, which was also really, really cool. They called it the Celebration at Sea. And they did that in the middle of our dinner at Triton's. And that was really fun. I think there's a princess one you mentioned that we did not experience. I think maybe because they don't do that because of Tiana's Place.
So were the princesses at Triton's, the princesses didn't walk through the restaurant?
No, they did not.
Okay. Which I guess makes sense because you already get Tiana, but on the Dream and the Fantasy, they seem to walk through. They don't stop, obviously, but they just do a little swirl and they play some music. But maybe that's the difference. it's also not Royal Court or Royal, whatever the other one's called, but it's Triton. So it's not like all princesses. It's just Ariel, perhaps. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. But they did have Mickey and friends came in there. I will say, Steve, we got an order. Our server encouraged us to get an order of escargot and encouraged my kids to try it. Both my boys tried the escargot. I did as well. I don't dislike escargot. It's just not a favorite for me, but it was fun to try it with them. And then my one son got duck confit. My youngest, my 6-year-old, as his appetizer. And he loved that Donald Duck came in. He said, I ate Donald Duck.
No, God.
Chris would appreciate that.
I was just going to say that.
Shoot. I don't even know where to go with that.
So if we want to continue, 2 other points on food I'll throw out there real quick. One thing I hadn't noticed before, they had specialty pizzas at Pinocchio's, and they were like really interesting. Like they had a sweet pear and caramel onion pizza and a butternut squash pizza and a taco pizza. Each day they had different pizza, specialty pizza there. It was really, really fun. Still at the shawarma station. And then we did do Palo Brunch, which was our first time doing Palo Brunch, and we did enjoy it. I know that usually the buffet is a big part of that, and we did miss that, but the food at Palo was definitely a notch above, and the service was a notch above, and it was fun for my wife and I to have some alone time, go eat at Palo while our kids were at the kids club, and we did enjoy that. I don't know if I do that every sailing when they don't have a buffet, but we did enjoy it, and I think it was worth the added cost to experience that and see what it was like.
On Palo Brunch, what did the appetizers, if we want to call them that, menu look like? Do you recall, it appears that there's some sort of seafood platter, there's a cheese platter. Do you remember what any of the choices were?
There was an option to get a charcuterie platter that would have like the meats and cheeses, and then there was a seafood equivalent option. We didn't get either of those. They just brought out a whole bunch of different breads and pastries for us to try. And then we jumped in and got a Mickey waffle and a frittata, and then tried some of the Italian dishes. The food quality was definitely good. And we had, our server was awesome. It was actually his first time on the Wonder and first time in Palo. He had been a server in the main dining rooms on the Dream, I think it was, for a long time. And then had an opportunity, if you wanted to come back to the Wonder and Palo, and did that.
Well, let's turn back to the shows just real quick. This is Halloween on the High Seas sailing. And then obviously they had Pirate Night. How did that kind of work? Did they have any additional shows for Halloween on the High Seas? Did they have trick-or-treating for the kids? Were they able to get candy? I think I've heard that they put it in the rooms. What were you guys' experience?
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. The Halloween side of things, other than the decorations, was almost non-existent. They played some Halloween music on I think the Halloween night was our first sea day. They did play some Halloween music, and they had Mickey's Masquerade Party, which what they did is they had us come up on deck. They had 2 showings. There was a 7:30 and like a 10:30 at night, something like that. You got to go up on deck, and they have blue dots all over the deck. And you had a cast member would lead you, and you'd stand on your blue dot, and they had them on deck 9 and deck 10. Then they had like little song and dance. The entertainment staff came out and danced, and then all the characters came out in their costumes, and pretty similar to a traditional deck party, except you had to stand on your blue dot. Lots of people, including us, dressed up in Halloween costumes. But that seemed to be the only Halloween activity that I really saw, was that Mickey Masquerade Party. And then our kids did get bags of candy in the room. We got back. The coolest part of those were the bags were very Disney themed, had cool stuff on them. Like I told them I wanted the bag. I didn't care about the candy, but we got a bag of candy for each of my kids in the room with cool bags. But that seemed to be about it for Halloween on the High Seas. So that was a little, I was hoping they were going to still do like the scary stories up on Funnel Vision or something like that. But I didn't see Halloween activities. On Pirate Night, they had pirate game shows. We did pirate trivia. We did Do You Want to Be a Pirate? They had a bunch of pirate activities but Halloween, no. And I don't know why.
When did the fireworks for your cruise occur?
Yeah, that was interesting because when we got on, I looked through the navigator and I didn't see them at all. But then they put a letter in our stateroom because we had a veranda. They did them on Pirate Night. They told us in the letter, it implied that there was going to be a pirate deck party. And I was like, really? I didn't think they were doing that. But it was just fireworks. They were like 10:45 at night on Pirate Night. It was just a fireworks show. It was the happily ever after at sea. Once again, they had blue dots. I don't know if it's just because of the number of people in our sailing. I've heard sometimes they do 2 sessions. We just had one firework performance, and we went up and had to stand on our blue dot. The one thing I will share is, please, if you're going to sail, we've said this before, there are health protocols, there are all things different. Please don't fight the cast members on it. One of our favorite entertainment cast members was assigned up in our area, and throughout the night, people would try and fill in open spots on the deck that didn't have blue dots on them. And then they had to come around and say, no, you can't stand there. There's not a blue dot there. Now you're crowding this other family's space. And I felt bad that our favorite cast member had to go chase people down we went out about a half an hour early to get a good spot. And she was chasing people off the whole time. Now if you asked, they had spots all over. They opened up an area just for adults around the Quiet Cove pool. And so they were saying, if you're an adult only party, we'll take you there. They opened up spots on deck 4 where you could see the fireworks. Like, they made sure there was spots for people. But if you just wandered and tried to fill in a spot, you were making the cast members do extra work. So please don't do that. Just ask a cast member. They'll find you a blue dot.
We here at the DCL podcast endorse that statement.
Absolutely. Well, I know people can't see what we're looking at because we're doing this via video as we record this. And I know that, Brian, you're a big runner. First, I do have a question. Did you do any running while you're on the ship? Did you go to the gym or did you go on to deck 4? And then I see a winter medal of some sort that I think you're going to have to talk about.
We'll have to talk about the winter medal. I did. I ran both the sea days. I ran 5K on deck 4. That was something, my running journey is very connected to my DCL journey. I discovered the two at the same time when we first trained for the Castaway Cay 5K. That was one thing I've been waiting this whole time to run on deck 4 again. And I did do it. It was phenomenal. Love running on deck 4. I did that 2 mornings and had a great time. And you don't have to wear a mask on deck 4 or any outdoor space. So you can go run on deck 4. I don't know what the gym was like because I wanted to run on deck 4. But in terms of the winter medal, yes. So we did a lot of trivia. And that was one of the other fun things. My kids and I went and did Disney Tunes trivia. And I realized every member of my family, even my wife, wasn't there the first time. My son was texting her on the app to get answers to one of the bonus questions that they had. We had so much fun doing the trivia. We did a bunch of the game shows. At one point, my wife and I played Generations Quest. Don't know if you've heard of that one, but it's basically the older generation versus the younger generation. So they get some adults up there and some like teenagers, and they have it's like 3 rounds. You have to do trivia, and they're doing like pop culture trivia from the different decades. Parents have to do the modern pop trivia, and the kids have to do like 90s pop trivia. And then they do a lip sync battle, which was kind of fun because they said, yeah, you've got a mask on. So how do you do a lip sync battle? You've got to make a fool out of yourself and, dance with the emotion. So we did a lip sync battle, and then they have a dance off. And we played that. My wife and I got selected to play, and we lost. The kids won, but it was fun. So lots of fun games. At the end, we had done a bunch, and our favorite entertainment staff, if you're sailing on the Wonder, Steve, you got to say hi to Molly for me. Molly's awesome. Tell her that one of the other entertainment staff, she said, always gets all the compliments. And so I made sure to tell him that I was looking for my favorite entertainment staff member when we walked into one of the venues. But Molly is awesome. She's from England. I asked her, I said, Molly, we're at the end of the cruise. I haven't won a medal and I really want one. What can I still do? How can I still get a medal? And she said, come to karaoke, family karaoke at 10:30 at night, which my daughter was begging to go to, and sing. And she said, you got to do a family rendition of Let It Go with you and your girls. And so, yes, I went to 10:30 karaoke and did a family rendition of Let It Go with my 2 girls. Made it a fool of myself, but I got a Mickey medal out of it, so it's all worth it. Since it was me and my girls singing, there was no one to film us, therefore.
Oh, that was my question.
But there is a record of my lip sync. My daughter filmed my lip sync during Generations Quest, so maybe I'll get her to send it to you if I'm feeling nice.
Please. Okay, this is so many comments that I want to make off this of your last, I don't know the transition word there, talk. But okay, we're running out of time because unfortunately we all are working today and have not very much time left. So I want to make sure that we cover any other entertainment activities that you did during the cruise.
We did both shows. They had Frozen and Disney Dreams. Frozen was phenomenal, by far my favorite one. I'm not a huge Frozen fan, but the quality of the show and the effects and the puppetry, and it's phenomenal. Like, cannot recommend it enough. Disney Dreams is fun too. My daughter loves that show. It's a good show. The quality of the entertainment was top notch. We haven't been to live theater in so long, and it felt so good to watch live theater again. That's, I think, it. Again, all the fun activities are there, trivia and things. So don't worry if you're going that you won't have plenty to do. There's lots to do.
Good on you for getting that medal. And if anybody is on board with Brian and his family and you run into him, maybe you can talk him into showing you that video of him lip syncing as well. So, but good on you for winning that medal. We'd be remiss if we don't talk about shore excursions. So this cruise actually stopped in Cabo San Lucas. And right now on the East Coast, they're only going to Castaway Cay, but out here on the West Coast, they're stopping at Cabo. And then our cruise will be going to Ensenada. How did the shore excursions work? Did you book something ahead of time? And then how did it run once you got on board?
Yes, we did book something ahead of time. They are limited right now. In some cases, they showed up all the options, but a bunch of them right away were sold out because Disney's not booking them. They're only booking things where they can create a Disney bubble of just people from the Wonder on the shore excursion with no risk of interacting with other people. So things like the beach days are kind of out because you can't really control who you might run into at the beach. Shopping excursions are kind of out because that's really hard to control. Most of the options I saw involved getting on another boat and doing something out on the water because that's very easy to control. They did have a salsa and salsa excursion, which I think must have taken you to a controlled spot where they can control who's coming in and out of that area. And there may have been one or two other things there was like a climbing or maybe it was a camel ride sort of thing. So they had dolphin options. So only things where they can create that Disney bubble. And if you have kids under 12 who are not vaccinated, because everyone had to be vaccinated on the voyage, but if you had kids, the only way they can get off the ship is on a Disney shore excursion. The nice thing is the ones for Mexico are pretty reasonably priced, especially compared to some of the Bahamas, a lot lower prices. So that was pretty reasonable. We decided to go on the Chileno Bay snorkeling excursion. So it was a catamaran sail. We got off the ship and got on a catamaran. They took us by Land's End to see the arch and then took us over to a bay to go snorkeling. I will say it was super fun. We had a lot of fun, lots of fish. My kids got to swim through schools of fish, snorkel and see lots of fish. Pretty big fish. There were some colorful ones. It may not be the best snorkeling in the world, but it was definitely, you saw a lot of fish, and my kids have been practicing in the pool for a long time. And this was their first chance to, snorkeling at Castaway Cay requires a lot of effort and isn't the greatest in terms of what you see. This was really fun for them. They really enjoyed being out with the fish. And then they had drinks and snacks on the ship. Normally, I bet they would have done something like chips and salsa or something, but the pandemic was just a bunch of packaged snacks. But my kids had fun because they were like Mexican branded packaged cookies and chips and things that they've never tried before. So they really thought that was fun.
And your youngest snorkeled too?
Yeah, my youngest snorkeled too. He stayed with mom he snorkeled. Yeah, they had life preservers for the kids. Normally, they would give you snorkel vests. If you didn't want a life preserver, you could get a snorkel vest. They said because of COVID and they don't want people blowing in the snorkel vest tubes, they didn't have snorkel vests. So if you didn't want a life preserver, they had pool noodles. Everyone was required to have a flotation device, but they had pool noodles, which I had never snorkeled with a pool noodle before. It actually works really well. It gives you a little bit of buoyancy. It doesn't get in your way. And it was actually really fun to snorkel with a pool noodle. So that was your option, a traditional orange life vest or a pool noodle. And the pool noodles were a lot of fun. The group that they were wearing masks on the ship the whole time. We were not required to wear a mask on the catamaran once we got on. We had to wear a mask on the tenders. So yeah, I'm thinking there's all these little things. Cabo was a tender port. You had to wear a mask on the tender. You had to wear a mask in the terminal area. They were making you sanitize as you got on and off the tender. If you were with a shore excursion, this is the other thing that I need to talk about. They made a big deal about this, that you could not deviate or go off from a shore excursion. So as an adult, I wanted to go buy some Mexican vanilla. They said, you cannot, at the end of the shore excursion, you can't go do that. You have to come with the group on the tender back to the boat, check in, and then adults or teenagers, people who are fully vaccinated, were allowed to take a tender over on their own and go explore Cabo on their own. But you couldn't do that without coming back to the ship if you were part of the bubble, or you would not be allowed to reboard. They were very, very strict about that. We went off, did the shore excursion, had a good time, came back, checked in, and then I took another tender back to go shopping real quick and buy some Mexican vanilla, and then took the tender back. So that was a little bit of a pain, but that was the requirement for right now. But made me feel very comfortable about the excursion, and we had a great time. It was definitely recommend the Chileno Bay snorkeling excursion in Cabo.
Great information. This is so helpful.
They do those pool noodles in Hawaii when we were diving. They use it, and people love them. So if you're a good swimmer and don't need to use the life vests, I think those are a little tougher sometimes because they come right up. And depending if you don't get them tight on and everything else, I think the pool noodles are a lot more comfortable. I will say, looking at Ensenada, we originally booked a shore excursion and it disappeared. And like you were saying, Brian, I think what they've got going are like horseback riding. They've got a snorkeling thing, which we've rebooked now. We're going to try and do that. They've got a wine tour, which they must be able to kind of control that bubble. But I'm not going to nitpick here whatsoever. But what's the difference between getting off on the tender and going and wandering around Cabo or going to beach? But it's the beginnings, and And I guess, as you've said, Brian, just run with the rules, respect the cast members, and be ready for change.
The difference, though, in that area is that unvaccinated folks can't go wander. So it's only those that are vaccinated that are able to take the tender and wander around. And so that's why they're not going to the beach, because with the unvaccinated folks, they're trying not to break the bubble. But if you're vaccinated,
that's a good point. That's a good point. You're right. I forgot about the unvaccinated part of it. No, that's a good point.
Right.
Okay, you got me there, Christy. So
it's for the kids. I don't think they wanted to offer excursions that should be kid friendly and just say you can't go on this if you're under 12 because you're not going to be vaccinated and we don't want you to go on the beach. Disney just said, oh, we're only going to do excursions so we can have the bubble. And that kind of makes sense.
No, those are all really good points. Well, as you guys head back up to San Diego, before we talk about getting off, one of the things that could be a little bit different about sailing on the Pacific, and we were really lucky, it was a beautiful sea day we had, but it can be a little wavy out there. How was the weather and what was the sailing conditions like for you on your sea days?
It was not as rocky, even as I recall when we were in the Bahamas. Smooth sailing for the most part. I mean, a little bit of motion, but nothing crazy. We had great weather. I think the first sea day on the way down was a little bit cooler, but coming back, it was warm. There's a lot of wind. One thing, the wonder was, like I mentioned, going fast. The captain said they were trying to do 20 knots the whole time to get to Cabo and back. And so there was some vibration. You could tell the engines were going. And that meant there was more wind on the deck. So if you're on deck 10, it was rather windy. But then if you're down in the pools, they're kind of sheltered a little bit. And so my kids went swimming and had a good time. The weather was just beautiful. I think October is a great time to sail.
I think October and September is actually better than the spring. So if you're sailing on the Wonder and thinking about doing some of these trips down to Mexico, I think the weather generally tends to be a little bit better. So you guys get back to San Diego. Any hiccups in the disembarkation process, Brian?
Nope. Super smooth. Nothing seemed abnormal. Ate breakfast. We did eat breakfast to see our serving staff off and then got off. Yeah, everything was normal. It was just an incredible cruise. I will say, I know a lot of people are wondering, is it worth it right now? It was the most normal we have felt in 18 months, just knowing that Disney had created kind of that, the bubble that they created on the ship. It just felt so normal. Things are a little bit different. We have to get people to give you your ice cream and your drinks. By the way, they had strawberry and blueberry flavored ice cream. That is the best flavor of soft serve I've ever had, is that blueberry. So good. Never had problems getting drinks though. Never had very long lines. It was just, the characters were just randomly in different parts of the ship. They keep them always where they can control, but I've never been somewhere where it's like, oh, there's that character. Let's go say hi. Oh, maybe we have to wait one family in front of us and then we can get a selfie and say hi. Like, that was phenomenal. The characters weren't a huge draw for us, but we got lots of photos without a bunch of effort, without waiting in line, without making a huge effort. And that was really fun. It was just so fun. And the cast was so excited to have people back on board, and such great service. It was just phenomenal. Loved every minute of it. And we booked a placeholder. We're going to try and slip another cruise in because we also got an added discount because they shortened the length of our cruise. So we're going to see if we can get another cruise in here. And I know you'll ask, we do have a cruise booked for next October on the Fantasy as well. So we just can't wait to get back out. It was just everything we wanted and then some, and it had been a long wait. And we were just so grateful and felt very blessed to have the opportunity to go.
Well, I'm glad you and your family had just an amazing experience like everybody else has been having. And for everybody else that is going to be sailing soon, I think that you've painted just a great picture for them on what to expect and the fun that they are going to experience when they get back on board that Disney ship. Well, Brian, thank you so much for all you do for our podcast. Thank you so much for doing this trip report with us. And I'm going to give a huge shout out. Brian and his family went down to Costa Rica over spring break, and we've been wanting to get that show out was it spring break?
No, it was the summer. It was our backup in case the cruise got canceled. Okay. We had an opportunity to do that. And then we ended up having to do 2 really epic trips in 3 months. And I'm not going to complain about that.
So we have been trying to get that out. We are going to get it out sometime soon. We just released one today about Iceland, where a couple had to cancel their cruise up to Iceland, and they just decided to go to Iceland and make a land adventure out of it. And I really want to bring that Costa Rica trip out because we do love Adventures by Disney, don't we, Christy? And that's probably one of the best adventures to start off with. And I'd really like to get your thoughts about just doing it yourself with your family, Brian.
Yeah, it was really, we did compare and contrast because the cost, we went to an all-inclusive in Costa Rica, similar costs, there's a lot of cool stuff about Disney Cruise Line. We had a blast on the other trip. We'll talk about it on the other episode. But getting back on the ship just reminded us of all the things we love about Disney. If you do go, pack a little bit of patience because there are little differences and maybe some of them don't make sense to you right away. But just know the cast members want to be there. And if you're nice to them and have a little bit of flexibility, all the magic's still there. All the fun's still there. It just may be a little bit different.
And if you want to win that Mickey winter medal, just go to that 10:30 karaoke and sing Let It Go.
There you go.
All right, Brian, as we get out of here, thank you so much for all you do. Please stay in touch. Let us know when you book that next cruise, because I'm sure you'll be back on board before you get that fantasy next October. Thank you so much for all you do. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to talking about your Costa Rica trip soon.
Sounds good. Thank you for the podcast. And all the information was certainly helpful coming onto our cruise. And it's always fun to keep, between cruises, keep listening.
Well, thanks again, Brian. And we will talk to you soon. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Brian for coming on and sharing his and his family's experiences as they sailed on Halloween on the high seas and the beautiful Disney Wonder and the first sailing out of San Diego. What a great experience for them and good for him and his family to finally be back on board and sailing with Disney Cruise Line. And as this episode comes out, it's October 13th, 2021, and Disney Cruise Line released their early 2023 sailings, so you can go over to DisneyCruiseLine.com and find out all the information on those upcoming sailings in the very beginnings of 2023. If you don't have a travel agent and would like to use Christy's services, you can go over to PackYourPixieDust.com and find out all the information there if you want to book something with her. We'd also like to thank each and every one of our Patreon supporters. They help bring this show to you each and every week. If you'd like to find out more about our Patreon program, you go over to patreon.com/DCL podcast and find out all the information there. Well, as we move into the central part of October, this is middle part of October, and Halloween is like knocking at the door right after that, we're going to be looking at some very maritime cruises on Disney Cruise Line. If you and your family are booked very maritime cruise and would like to come on and talk about your experiences on the podcast after you get back, we sure would appreciate it. You can reach out to me, Steve, at DCLpodcast.com. and we'll get you lined up to come on and talk about your and your family's experiences. It helps all of us out here in the Disney cruising community sail a little smarter. Well, between now and our next show, I know a lot of people have got cruises booked. You'll be out there sailing or heading down to Walt Disney World for the 50th, or maybe just doing something in your own local state, local area. On behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL Podcast, we want to wish you and your family be well, take care of each other, enjoy the time you have out there on the road, spending time and making memories with each other. We wish you all the best, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast. The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.